Wow, I wonder if this is gonna be something really big and epic. That's it. Almost there. Now, presenting another incredible ranking of every DreamWorks animated movie. Haha! That's made by an idiot. Woohoo! Woohoo. Hold the applause, everyone, please, please. Take that, depression. Well, despite all that life has thrown at me with going on dates, college, mental health inconveniences, elephants, exercising, and whatever the hell is going on in my life, I have finally made this video. To be fair, my announcement for this video was recently, but this video has been in the works since November 2023, give or take, and really has been an idea since the "Is DreamWorks better than Disney" video, because as I mentioned in that video, while I did grow up watching Disney and DreamWorks movies as a wee little lad, DreamWorks movies always stuck out to me more back then, and certainly now I feel like they had a much more pronounced effect on me, even to this very day. And so despite there already being several ranking every DreamWorks animated movie videos on YouTube, all of which I recommend checking out, I decided to throw my hat in the ring because I feel like this is the best way for me to talk about every single DreamWorks movie and the impact that they had on me in my life. Like most rankings, this is my personal opinion, and I guarantee that you are going to strongly disagree with at least one of my placements on here, so the sooner that you accept that, instead of typing in the comments about how I need to go bathe with a toaster, or I should try this new ceiling necklace that's very popular. To iterate, this is my subjective ranking, and while for the most part my enjoyment does usually coordinate with the quality of the film, but some of them, will say the less than stellar ones, are higher than others because I can at least laugh at how bad they are or how absurd the film is. With that pointless process of me setting up a little wall to try and protect myself from the angry comments, I give you every animated DreamWorks movie ranked. And the worst DreamWorks animated movie is number 46, Spirit Untamed. I'm gonna be honest, I watched this movie for the first time for this ranking because I did not want to watch it when it came out because for one, it looked bad, and the other, I'm clearly not the target audience for this film or the Netflix show that this took most of the inspiration from because I am not a 10-year-old girl. I knew I probably wasn't going to be a fan of this movie for a lot of reasons, but even I was shocked at how bad this one was. Like, woof. I can't really think of any actually positive noteworthy elements of this film. The animation is serviceable most of the time, but even then, a lot of the facial expressions and movements feel very janky. For example, a lot of the comedic facial expressions feel like they are very restrained, which makes the comedy fall very flat and hitting the ground harder than Lucky's mom, which I had to look up the main character's name to remember it and realized how stupid it is to name your child Lucky. They should have named her Plot Convenience because whatever happens in this movie is solely at the convenience of her. Why would we show a scene that, you know, smoothly and naturally shows the amount of time it took Spirit in the original movie to trust people, when she can do it in like 3 days? Clearly Little Creek had no idea what he was doing. A 10-year-old girl is clearly the expert when it comes to gaining the trust of a wild animal. It might have been longer, but the film did such a terrible job of communicating it to the audience that it comes across as 3 days. So as far as I'm concerned, it was 3 days. That's another thing about this movie. As someone who has worked with wild animals, with many of them having very traumatic pasts involving people, I wish it was that easy. After her jumping on his back, that would have been the shattering of that bond, because animals tend to lose trust based on how much you are going to take out of the trust bank. They kind of go that route, but when she jumps on his back and rides him out of town, for an animal, that is a huge ask and violation, which I would bet would destroy most, if not all, the trust he did have with her. How's the voice acting? It's fine. I guess except when it's not. The story is very cliche and extremely predictable. The characters are equally boring and two-dimensional. None of the emotional moments hit because the pacing and build-up leading up to these emotional moments are so rushed and so forced because we have to empower the little girls. That is not a bad thing, they just do it very poorly in this movie. The most positive thing I can say about this film is that the landscape shots are very pretty, but even then it's kind of the standard quality we expect from modern animated movies. This film was able to get a visceral reaction out of me, which is pretty impressive because not many of these did, so points for that I guess. But worst of all, it's so boring, which is one of the worst things a movie can be. Honestly, I could go on and on about this movie, but just like the original film, this one was loosely based off. This one might get its own video one day, but until then, it can take solace in the fact that this is my least favorite DreamWorks movie by a significant amount. Here's your award movie. Now excuse me, dear audience, while I take this film out behind the barn and put it down and turn it into glue and dog food. Number 45, Home.
I do not want it to work.
Hey, you know what? Boo rhymes with groove. Shake your boob thing.
Prior to watching Spirit Untamed, I was extremely confident that Home was going to remain at the bottom of my list, as I have stated at least once on this channel how this has always been my least favorite DreamWorks movie, until Spirit Untamed galloped into the worst spot, which part of that does have to do with it having a connection to a beloved property, which movies that have that corporate stench do comprise the majority of my least favorite films. So whenever an original movie makes it onto my shit list, you do have to give it props for it. I say original, but let's face it, this film was so clearly made to rip off the Minions, which have made Illumination $1 gazillion and will probably double that amount, so of course DreamWorks was gonna copy them because that's what DreamWorks does. Hey, am I right? I'm kidding. Before ripping Home a new one, is there anything I liked about this film? I mean, there's a couple funny jokes.
Before I got the password, I erased him.
There's one of Rihanna's songs that I kind of like out of context from the film, but in context it makes the emotional moments awkward and it just stands out like a redneck in Seattle. I also do like the little twist ending with the Gorg. I don't know, it's just a nice little emotional moment that works. It's simple. I like it. Screw off. Speaking of Rihanna, she is one of the main characters, and while a decent singer and musical performer, she's clearly not cut out for acting. Although her voice acting here, it's not nearly as egregious as she is in Valerian in the City of 1,000 Times I Bashed My Skull in while watching that atrocity. The rest of this film is so clearly targeted to little kids, and I mean like 2 to 3 year olds. The color palette, lots of soft and safe colors, fun squishy designs for the boob, extreme close-up camera shots that make you feel extremely uncomfortable, and the humor equivalent of jangling keys in front of a baby who still hasn't developed their prefrontal cortex. And for the worst part of the movie, Sheldon Cooper. The voice they had him makes me want to rip off my ears, put them in a box, and then put that box into another box, and then mail it to my front door, and then when it arrives, I'll smash it with a hammer! I guarantee the producers asked themselves, what's the most obnoxious voice that we could do that'll make kids laugh? And Sheldon Cooper came in and said, Bazinga! Honestly, I side with all the boob in hating him and wanting him to be erased because this guy is just the worst. If O was tolerable, this film wouldn't be so low, but he single-handedly brings it down so much that the rest of the film suffers for it. I also do not buy the friendship that these two form with them trying to betray one another and then all of a sudden they're besties. Tip has been shown to be this closed-off person that doesn't trust others very easily, which makes it more unbelievable that they would go from tying O up after he tries to leave her stranded to all of a sudden going to silly goofy dance party because it's been 5 minutes since the last Rihanna song. The plot is only moved forward by O's incompetence, which I just love when I get to watch a character make the literal worst decision possible in a situation because we have to make the movie somehow. Call the Helldivers because nothing would be a more pleasant Sunday family activity than to drop some freedom onto this film.
Launch initiated.
Give Daddy some sugar!
Number 44, Trolls World Tour.
The most important songs in the history of music.
Yes, but which ones?
All of them.
And when you say all of them.
I hate the fact that this film has cultural significance, with it being the first theatrical film to be available to rent on streaming services when COVID began, which seems like such a long time ago, but I'm getting sidetracked. Trolls 2 World Tour, in a word, is obnoxious, with Poppy being at her most unbearable of toxic positivity, refusing to listen to anyone else, and the irony that she beats the villain by not listening, which is so shockingly hilarious. I kind of refuse to believe that a mistake like that didn't just slip by, and have to think it was intentional to some degree. It's basically the plot of Infinity War mixed with racial dominance and suppression of other races, and still has nothing of any value to say, or says it in the most superficial and boring way imaginable. There's also way too much James Corden in this film, and every second of him on screen is more agonizing than getting my balls hooked up to a car battery. The remaining elements of the story are so cliched and overdone, or just straight up copied from the first film, that you know exactly what's gonna happen 30 minutes before it happens. Even the fun musical segments of the first one are gone. Granted, the first one they were about 50-50 on whether the musical scenes were fun or obnoxious, but the point still stands. Credit where credit is due, the film has 1 or 2 decent jokes, and the animation in the world is very creative, but ultimately it's such a forgettable film with a fairly unlikable protagonist. I say this one is better off with you hitting the skip button on this playlist. Number 43, Shark Tale. This is a disaster of a film, truly an enigma of how such a failed abortion of a film came to fruition. One could even call it a cinematic disaster. Okay, but this film is kind of awesome. When I was a kid, I got in trouble for waking up early and watching Shark Tale without my sister because I just couldn't bear to wait until she was done with her nap to watch the glory that is Will Smith fish and closeted gay shark.
Oh, snuggly, buggly, wuggly. I love you, man.
The movie is terrible. I mean, nothing is good. Not to mention extremely cringy, but gosh darn it if it isn't one of the most entertaining films I've ever seen. And yes, while objectively I would say this is the worst DreamWorks film, it's much more entertaining than most of the terrible films on this list. So while I am putting it at the bottom of the terrible films, it didn't get that visceral reaction out of me. So take solace, dear viewer, that the movie is easily one of DreamWorks' most entertaining movies. Number 42, Turbo.
Whoa, that snail is fast.
So get this, it's a movie about a snail that goes fast. How wacky is that? Because snails are like normally slow, but this one goes fast. So will you greenlight this film? It's a film about a snail that goes fast, and not much more to say about this one. It's possibly the most generic animated kids movie ever, with probably the worst DreamWorks villain. I like the race scene because everything go fast and burr, but that doesn't save this film from being so generic and dull, and that is all I have to say because it is so generic and dull. Number 41, Shrek 3.
Ah! Oh! Donkey! Donkey! Wake up! Ah! Ah!
Da-da!
You know, if we take this film out from the Shrek trilogy, it's easily one of the best trilogies DreamWorks has produced. Shrek 3 on paper is not a bad idea to take the character of Shrek. I think him being worried about being a father, given him being an ogre, is very legitimate, and unlike other sequels to beloved trilogies, it feels like enough time has passed for this next big life change to be happening and doesn't feel rushed because we have to have a new character take up the mantle. Honestly, this film might age slightly better once all the internet people that love this franchise have kids of their own. But ideas are only as good as their execution, and this movie stumbles hard. Between the forced relationships of Arthur and Shrek, Prince Charming as a solo villain, who is hilariously awful, making him one of the worst DreamWorks villains, and most of the humor being reduced to poop and fart jokes because babies poop and fart a lot. Just like any bad sequel in a franchise of good movies, the bad one is always gonna be attacked a lot more because of those high expectations. And while I do dislike this film and think it is bad, it's not as bad as I remember it being rewatching this, and I do think Shrek 3 gets a little overhated. I say that as I put this in the bottom 6 DreamWorks films, so I guess my actions speak louder than words. So hypocrite. But I will say I do love one scene from this movie, which I'll put in here to end this portion. But while this one good scene doesn't save an otherwise mediocre movie, it still deserves to at least be acknowledged.
You know, it may be hard to believe, what with my obvious charm and good looks, but people used to think I was a monster. And for a long time, I believed them. But after a while, you learn to ignore the names that people call you, and you just trust who you are.
Number 40, Trolls.
Wait! I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation. At least give him a chance.
Thank you, Poppy. I'm selling you out.
This is a good kids movie that'll entertain kids and has a couple of chuckle jokes and is a very creative, but god damn it, this is the epitome of what every modern day animated movie has become, and I blame this film for really getting it rolling, even though there is certainly other films that could be blamed. One thing that drives me crazy with characters are those that express toxic positivity because they are insufferable as they shove their view of life down everyone's throat, and they are almost always shown to be in the right. Case in point is Poppy, which granted she's not as bad in Trolls 2, but it's still very annoying. I've wasted enough time talking about this one, so skip! Number 39, The Boss Baby.
You're toast, baby man!
Upsies! Onion upsies!
I have a feeling this is gonna get me some slack, but this movie is like a more competently made Shark Tale. In the sense, it's not a very good movie at all, with Tim being one of the most insufferable child characters in a film that I can think of. Also, I just despise how soft the parents are in this movie, creating this monster of a spoiled child. The emotional moments aren't really earned because you don't believe the relationship between Tim and Donald Zuckerberg Gates Jr. with one of, if not the most forced third act breakup scene I've ever seen in a film, although Secret Life of Pets might have it beat.
My life was perfect until you showed up.
Oh, believe me, kid, the feeling is mutual. I wish I'd never met you.
I wish you'd never been born. Where are you going?
But both are so rushed and forced, it feels like the cinematic equivalent of a hernia. That being said, there's the fact that this is such an absurd fever dream of a movie that I can at least get enjoyment from that in a sense. I would say that this is also thoughtful commentary on how more of the younger generations are not interested in having babies and favoring having pets instead of this, but let's face it, proposing such an idea would be laughably futile, as this film is meant to be emotional and entertaining, and it is one of those things. I'll give you a hint, it's not the emotional one, and even the entertaining part is still debatable.
Ticklish, ticklish.
Here you go.
So, that's my story. Our story.
Number 38, Boss Baby, Family Business.
Personal? It's business, Leslie. Personal to me, Lindsay.
A slightly better version of the first one with a pretty funny self-dig.
It was a good story, wasn't it?
Well, it didn't really make a lot of sense.
The jokes were good, right?
And just as much as a fever dream as the first, but that's pretty much all I can say about this one without getting repetitive, so let's move on.
So even though you're only a kid once, well, unless you get to be a kid twice, which is really weird, to be honest, but the point is, you have to grow up sometime. And you should always be nice to your brother.
Number 37, Monsters vs. Aliens. When this movie came out, I really wanted to get the robot toy that came with the McDonald's kids meals because that was easily the coolest one that they had. I eventually did get it, and I'm reminded of how awesome McDonald's toys used to be back then and how they have been reduced to lame cardboard and knockoff plushies. And now that I have revealed my age and the most memorable part of this movie, let's talk about the actual film. It's an okay movie, not really, but with some very questionable character designs because the people in here are easily more horrifying than any of the monsters or aliens. This movie isn't that good, but it's fine. The action is fun. Sometimes Susan is enough of a sympathetic character. The monster characters have a couple of lines that are funny, but again, they aren't annoying, but aside from a couple of the jokes, I don't really remember that much. That is a bald-faced lie, you motherfucker! Oscar, you absolutely could remember a lot of the lines from this movie because you've watched it so many times. Fine, you got me. I used to love this film, and it's simultaneously gotten worse and better because the generic elements become more generic, which is a shame, because this had the potential to be a great parody of those old classic movies like The Wolfman or Frankenstein. This could have been the next Shrek, but the bland characters and jokes like this actually hurt, but then there are a lot of really funny moments like this.
Don't rush me, Katie. I'm just not ready.
I'm not a danger to anyone or anything.
Don't let her get me.
I don't think we need a monster problem, too.
You got a better idea, nerd.
I want to go home.
Oh, come on, little Debbie. Please don't cry. It makes my knees hurt.
Truth be told, if this movie was better looking, then it would probably rank higher, but it's right along Shark Tales for ugliest DreamWorks movie. But overall, I wouldn't look down on someone who really enjoys this one, because as I mentioned, there are things to like in here. But for me, it just doesn't cut it.
Good luck getting over me.
Bob, it's me he's never gonna get over.
Wait! You were dating Derek too? That two-timing jerk!
Number 36, Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken.
Of said prom boat. Look into those eyes. Tell me he hasn't seen it all. I trust him with my life, and so should you. And that is why I, Ruby Gillman, should go to prom. Thank you.
Ah yes, the worst performing DreamWorks movie at the box office, because after every YouTuber and their mother praised DreamWorks with the release of Puss in Boots and The Last Wish, and how DreamWorks is going through a modern renaissance, that of course means they did not go see it in theaters, because most YouTubers do not practice what they preach. Hey, I'm at least honest about that. Cover that up! But the actual movie is just kind of standard, but I do feel like this film took more risks than say Trolls or Boss Baby, and some of those ones at least paid off while others don't. First off, there's nothing in this film that I actively despise or I think is downright terrible. Actually, the only thing I didn't like in this film was the action scenes, because they just felt so underwhelming considering how much they built it up in the trailers. You promised big kaiju battles, give us big kaiju battles! Other than that, there are a couple things I actually enjoyed from this film. For starters, I like Narissa, although based on the internet, there are people that really liked her. But she's a pretty fun, vain villain. I do like that she's actually comes across as a decent person, which really plays into the idea that mermaids are great at deceiving others, and then reveal their true nature with their original origin of luring sailors in only to drown them. It's a fun little detail. You know, props for that. I also like the relationship between Ruby and her mom, with both sides making sense, although it's still frustrating that we have to have the parent that keeps a secret from the kid. And now that I think about that, this is the exact same plot as Little Mermaid 2, which is not a good thing because you do not want to be compared to that movie. Okay, but there actually are some nice dialogue exchanges with the two that actually feel like a real conversation with a mother and daughter.
I know, but right now, I just want to keep you safe, honey, and that means getting you home.
Mom, look at me. I won't even fit inside of our house anymore.
Hey. You'll get small again. It just takes a little time. I'm here. I'll wait with you. I'm not going anywhere.
I'm really glad you're here, Mom.
I also like that both are shown to be in the wrong, and that the situation is more gray than black and white, and not another version of Turning Red where the child is completely in the right and the parent isn't, even though the child is a literal child.
Gyrating! I'm 13! Deal with.
This is probably one of the most recent examples I can think of where the parents are shown to be flawed, but they really do have the best intentions for their kid, even if they don't know how to express it all the time. You know, how most parents probably are, despite every show and movie showing them as the big evil oppressors of the stupid 13-year-olds who definitely don't have the capacity to make good long-term decisions. Other than those two elements, the rest of the movie is just fine, which is gonna be the pattern for most of the movies in this section of the ranking. Speaking of mid-movies,
and a kraken will always answer the call.
Number 35, Kung Fu Panda 4.
Let's do that again.
And next time, Keep your surf off their turf!
So I actually had a whole script written for a review of this movie and even made the thumbnail and recorded it. It was midway through the editing process when I decided to scrap it because it was pretty much the same as every other video on this movie that was coming out at the time. I mean, it's easily the weakest of the series with a lot of the evidence both in the movie and from the leaks behind the scene that this movie was kind of just meant to be a comedy and didn't seem to have a focus on the heart, with any attempts at it being very obvious that they were last minute additions. Kung Fu Panda 4 not only had the worst villain in the series, but easily one of the worst DreamWorks villains. Although not the worst, because at least the shape-shifting ability is cool. Not to mention that Zen is a laughably bad character in addition to one of the most predictable stories I've ever seen. I mean, the 5-year-olds in my theater were calling out important plot points 30 minutes before they even happened. To add to Zen, Awkwafina delivers such a bland and uninspired performance. It's a shame because this film has some real potential, but sadly fell very short. And honestly, the more I think about this film, the worse it gets. It hurts seeing some characters get absolutely butchered, like Kai and Shen, which Kai should not be there because, you know, he got spirit exploded, and Shen would absolutely never bow to Po. So if this film does so much wrong, why isn't it lower? Well, because there are still some good elements to it, like the comedy, for me at least, was successful 50% of the time, and the action scenes are honestly some of the best in the series. So to say there was no effort would be a flat out lie. It's just no effort went into the characters and the story. But like any sequel that comes out way too late after the original film's concluded and turned out to be aggressively mediocre, I'll probably forget about it days after I've seen it, and Kung Fu Panda 4 is no exception. Actually, one last thing that is worth noting about this film is the awesome cover of Hit Me Baby One More Time by Tenacious D, which goes way harder than it has any right to be. And I did in fact listen to it on loop while writing the script for the Kung Fu Panda 4 video that never came to be.
See you on the other side, Dragon Warrior.
Number 34, Over the Hedge.
Very scary rabbit squirrel. Hey, it's working! Behind you!
I know, you're right behind me!
This is probably the biggest surprise of this ranking for me. For context, I watched this film a lot growing up and was quite fond of it. So I'm shocked that upon rewatching, I disliked this film much more than I remember. I have a feeling I will be crucified for this one, but this film is very mid. Like, there are certainly some funny jokes, but aside from jokes, which credit where credit is due, there are some very funny ones in here, but the characters are just kind of one note. And it has one of my most hated story cliches ever, the liar reveal. And it doesn't do anything new or interesting with it, so I cringed throughout the whole film knowing where it's going to go. Now, I really should speak about how funny this film is, because it's carrying everything else so hard that both of its knees just busted like two swollen mosquitoes.
Oh, 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 oh!
Yes, Hemi.
I filled the log.
What the?
Look! I found my nuts!
Number 33, Trolls Band Together.
No, please! I barely have any talent left to give. I mean, maybe like a desperate Christmas album or a one-off national anthem performance. But that is it!
I can't believe that I'm going to say this, but I actually kind of had a mostly relatively enjoyable time with a Trolls film. I know, I didn't see that one coming either, but hey, I guess it shows that DreamWorks can still surprise us. By no means is this a great movie. I really wouldn't even call it good. But for some reason this one really clicked with me. Well, at least as much as one of these movies can. I can't think of anything objectively awful or anything that really annoyed me, but at least for me, like I said, I had a decent amount of fun with this one. For starters, this film has a more consistent character development than the Star Wars sequels, which isn't all that shocking, but it's still pretty pathetic considering on how Disney handled their franchises. Poppy, who has always been the most annoying character for me in these movies, seems to be a lot more toned down and isn't obnoxious and actually listens to people. Who knows? You know, the thing they were setting up from the last movie, but they didn't execute. Like, I'm genuinely shocked on how much this film seems to be learning from the past two entries. Another area of improvement in this film is the villains Velvet and Veneer, who are actually memorable because, for starters, I actually remember their names, unlike Rock Troll and Evil Chef Bergen. Wait, Chef is her name? They are your spoiled, bratty villains, but they have fun with them, and they do have some pretty funny lines.
Do you want to lose all this and go back to the dark place where we had nothing?
Please, sir, I want some more.
Girl, we grew up in the suburbs. Our parents were dentists.
So, how was school today?
Stop attacking me!
Plus, their musical numbers are all bops, with the best easily being the cover of Sweet Dreams, which I've listened to on repeat an obnoxious amount of times, and it's still a bop every time.
Who am I to disagree?
I travel the world and the seven seas, and hold your head up, moving on. Keep your head up, moving on. Hold your head up, moving on.
The humor of these movies has always been hit or miss with me, but for whatever reason, the comedy in this movie seemed to really stick with me, at least better than the previous ones. So this sounds like a pretty good movie, right? I wouldn't go that far. It's still kind of mid in some places, and there isn't anything exceptional about it. But for what it is, it's an enjoyable kids movie that parents wouldn't want to claw their eyes out if they had to watch it with their kids. But it's a relatively enjoyable, if empty, inoffensive 90 minutes. Number 32, Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas.
Nice place you got here.
Like it? I'm planning on doing the whole world this way.
Wow, that's a good plan.
After DreamWorks had released several banger films, including Ants, Prince of Egypt, Road to El Dorado, Chicken Run, Shrek, and Spirit, Sinbad was the first DreamWorks movie that even audiences thought this film was a dud. And yeah, I kinda see why. This film does one of my biggest pet peeves, which is way too modern sounding dialogue in vernaculars in a time period that does not reflect it. I cringe anytime I hear it in a movie, and this film kinda has a lot of it. It also has a very cliche love story, with you knowing Sinbad and Catherine Zeta-Jones. I could not remember the name of her character, and I did not care enough to look it up. It's just the classic arguing couple that are fighting all the time, but eventually they love each other because arguing equals flirting, apparently. All the side characters are pretty forgettable. I remember their designs and their voices, but I couldn't for the life of me remember the names of any of them or any of the lines they say. All that stuff aside, we have some actually really good elements in this movie. Sinbad as a character isn't actually too bad. Nothing special, but he's charismatic and actually has a nice, believable character arc. Also, if you ask my friend, then he's also very hot too, so that has to appeal to someone out there. Me personally, I find myself being drawn towards Eris. She's such a fun villain that wants to cause chaos, and her design is...
Are you okay?
Me? Yes, I'm fine. I am fine. I'm totally...
But the way she moves clearly shows the mad skills of the animators, which is even more impressive considering they did all of her animation with one hand. The constellations also being her pets is also extremely sick, and Michelle Pfeiffer is clearly having a lot of fun chewing on the scenery and raising chaos, among other things.
Well, well, well. This has got to be a little embarrassing for you, Eris.
Don't push your luck, Sinbad. You're cute, but not that cute. And lucky for you, I've got places to go, things to destroy.
After receiving an absurd amount of horse tranquilizers, I am now calm enough to talk about the rest of this movie. Which is a pretty fun adventure movie, which I feel is lacking nowadays, which is a shame because adventures in animated movies make for a fun watching experience. So even if this is a bit of a generic movie for the time that it came out, I'd take a standard anime movie like this than Boss Baby or another Despicable Me movie. Number 31, Puss in Boots.
And tell me all you care about is the gold.
Puss.
Kitty.
Oh my God!
This is one of those movies that every time I think about it and I remember really enjoying it and thinking that it's a pretty solid film, and then I go back and watch it, and what I get instead is a mid-action movie that is fun in pieces, but as a whole is a bit of a cohesive mess. Starting with positives, the soundtrack is bien. I feel like we don't get many soundtracks like it nowadays, probably because we don't get many Western Spanish outlaw movies, but it scratches that itch that I often have for some heroic outlaw instrumentals. The action is also pretty fun, with the climax being almost the exact same as Shrek 2, but it's still funny, and just like most of these movies, there are a couple of moments that make me chuckle. I feel like this movie struggles with balancing the more fantastical elements and making it more realistic, because we have certain fairy tale characters in here like Jack and Jill and Humpty Dumpty, but I feel like they are trying to do these more realistic, edgy versions of the characters. Speaking of Humpty, Dumpty is changed from revenge of destroy the city to, yeah, I'll save it. It was way too fast and not believable, and that makes the final scene where he's been a good egg the whole time unbelievable. This film also comes to a jarring halt because we have to have what feels like a 20-minute long flashback sequence about their childhood, which isn't bad, but it totally comes out of nowhere. It almost feels like it should have been its own movie or heavily edited so it wasn't as long as it was, because as is, it interrupts the flow of the Magic Bean story. Honestly, I feel like that's all to really talk about with this one, at least everything that I feel is noteworthy. Move on to the next one.
I am Puss in Boots, and my name would become legend.
Number 30, Mr. Peabody and Sherman.
I know, and much quicker than you as well.
But are you quick enough?
For this! See? Quick!
Quick, yes, but not too smart.
Oh! Another cantaloupe!
Penny absolutely drags this movie down, and I will never forgive her for it. I get that's the point, that she is this entitled brat, but it's one thing for her to verbally bully Sherman, but she puts him in a freaking chokehold. They are 10 years old, and what's worse is that they try to make him have this romantic relationship with each other. We don't need romantic subplots involving 10-year-olds, because that's just kind of weird and uncomfortable, but you especially can't do it when one of them had the other in a chokehold less than 24 hours earlier. In addition to the chokehold, she's just insufferable throughout the whole film. Ms. Grunion also drags the film down. Yes, I get that's why she's in here, to act as a nuclear family worshiper who thinks anyone who isn't in a male and female relationship shouldn't raise kids, and that's not a bad idea in theory, but it feels like a more unnecessary conflict when we already have all of space and time collapsing, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but seems like just a teeny weeny little bit of a bigger problem than discrimination. All that being said, the rest of the movie is so freaking good, you guys. It has this fun wit and quirkiness to it, but not in a forced astrology white girl kind of way. The relationship between Mr. Peabody and Sherman is also the heart and soul of this film, and carries it so hard, and is strong enough that it at least surpasses Penny and Grunion. They do feel like a real child and parent relationship, especially a parent that doesn't really know how to parent, but still very much loves their child. This film is solid. I like it, but I hate that I don't love it. I do love this final line that puts a nice little bow on the emotional powerhouse that is the father and son dynamic of this movie.
I love you, Mr. Peabody.
I have a deep regard for you as well, Sherman.
But as is, it has too many elements that weigh it down from truly being a great movie.
Sherman, wait.
Yes, Mr. Peabody?
I love you, Sherman.
I have a deep regard for you as well, Mr. Peabody.
Number 29, Madagascar.
What?
Excuse me?
That's dumb. Come, Maurice. What is a simple bite on the buttocks among friends? Here, give me a nibble.
The first Madagascar is a fun and zany movie. The comedic timing and animation is all very fast paced, but not to the point where you can't take in a joke. I like that the story is Alex not eating his friends. I can't think of too many times where I've seen this in a movie, so points for creativity. You do feel a sense of friendship between the zoo animals and believe that they have known each other and have been friends for a long time. If I had to be nitpicky, it's that the film can be a bit generic at times, but overall the movie is really trying to just be fun and funny, and it does those things pretty well. So to come at this film extremely aggressively for some minor problems seems very silly. Nothing else to say.
Skipper! Don't you think we should tell them that the boat's out of gas?
Nah, just smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.
Number 28, The Penguins of Madagascar.
You don't have a family, and we're all going to die.
Similar to the first Madagascar, there isn't a whole lot to say about this one other than I had fun and I think it's funny. More of the jokes landed with me for this one. Again, this isn't a super deep movie or a terrible one where I need to elaborate on why I feel the way I do about this one. So, next.
Who says penguins can't fly?
Number 27, Madagascar 3, Europe's Most Wanted.
What's new, pussycat?
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Marty, what phase are we at?
Phase 3! Apologize!
Right.
Oh man, we are so sorry.
Well, apology accepted.
If you had asked me several years ago which is my favorite Madagascar film, I would have said this one hands down. However, this movie has soured me a bit, with the biggest frustration being the liar reveal story, which I absolutely loathe. It's almost never done in an interesting way and always ends the same way, with both parties being sad but they eventually come together. Chances are, if a movie has this story beat in it, I'm probably gonna dislike the movie, or at least not gonna love it. Luckily, the rest of the film is strong enough that this trope doesn't drag the whole movie down to the depths of hell. The villain, Captain Dubois, is so much fun as a villain, while also being incredibly intimidating. I can honestly say she's a top 10 DreamWorks villain and steals every scene she's in. The comedy is also pretty solid. I think there are a couple of weak jokes, but for the most part, I think the jokes are up to the standard for the franchise. The emotional beats are also all very solid, with the two best being when the zoo gang makes it back to the zoo and reflect on what they've been through and how it compares to their zoo life. It feels very nice considering how far the series has come and feels very earned. The second being Vitaly the Tiger and overcoming the fear of failure. It's definitely a contender or honorary mention for my favorite DreamWorks moments. This sounds like it's the best in the franchise, right? Well, like I said, if it wasn't for that damn liar reveal plot point, I cannot look past it because it's as painful as it is in every other movie. This should show how much I despise this trope. Some might say, Cameron, that's kind of spiteful and petty, and to that I say, you're fucking A right! Number 26, Madagascar, Escape to Africa.
Plane won't be fixed until the shoots meet our demands. Now, about maternity leave.
Maternity leave? You're a male.
So if I think Madagascar 3 is so good, minus the one exception, why is 2 above it? Well, for starters, I think this one is funnier. The jokes landed more with me and the snappy animation lends itself to physical comedy better. In my completely expert comedic opinion, the movie also has some emotional moments. They aren't as strong as 3, but they're still good, minus the whole romance thing that's kind of handled clumsily and it's not painful. Just awkward. Alec Baldwin is also pretty meh as a villain. All he had to do is act like himself, then he would have been way more hateable. This movie's above 3 because 1, it's funnier, and 2, if the lie reveal trope was a person, the amount of war crimes that would occur against it would make even the most bloodthirsty of dictators blush.
Hey! Shake the hot thing! Shake the hot thing! Shake 'em! Shake 'em! Shake 'em! Shake 'em!
Number 25, The Croods.
I want to see some real caveman action out there. We do this fast. We do this loud. We do this as a family. And never not be afraid.
I like this movie. I acknowledge it's not the best, but I really like it. I won't pretend like this movie doesn't have a ton of cliches with a very unpopular pissing match between an overprotective dad and the boyfriend of the daughter. However, kind of like in the first Hotel Transylvania movie, I can't really say it for other movies, but at least you understand why are they protective. In the case of Grug, because it's an extremely dangerous world with them being the only cave people left, and those old ways have kept them safe so far. But even then, we see that Grug realizes that his knowledge of protecting his family isn't effective in this new world, which I'm sure for a father, I cannot speak from any experience personally, so this is a hunch, but not being able to protect your family would probably make anyone tense, especially when someone new comes along and has all these solutions that are radically different, however, are actually protecting his family. And yes, the middle of this film is cliched and doesn't have too much going for it, although I think the comedy across this film works a lot for me at least, but it does drag in some parts. But we get to the climax where Grug has to throw his family across the crevasse. Really emotional and well done. He hasn't been able to do a lot in the new world, but he can do this one last thing to ensure the safety of his family. However, even when he has thrown them across, he hears the shells and thinks they are in danger and uses Guy's ways to get across, where we get a really emotional moment.
Where's the danger? Who blew their shell?
I love you too.
Again, I'm not going to pretend this is a masterpiece of a film, and I understand why people don't like it, but I don't think it's as mid as people make it out to be. At the very least, should get recognition for what it does right, because this film has some really strong moments. Granted, it's towards the end, but it hits me in the feels. Maybe it's because family is pretty important to me, and I appreciate it when they at least did something with family, and specifically fathers, since I feel like we don't get to see a lot of fathers in media, let alone somewhat competent ones. I said somewhat. So this is one DreamWorks movie that has always had a special place in my heart, even if it is kind of lacking in some areas.
So from now on, we'll stay out here, where we can follow the light.
Number 24, Ants.
Beautiful worker girls.
Weaver, they're career girls. They're obsessed with digging. I really don't think I'm ever gonna meet the right girl for me.
Who said there was a girl for you? I was talking about a girl for me.
Ants, the very first DreamWorks movie, an infamous movie for the drama behind the scenes of this and Bug's Life, none of which I want to get into, because if I wanted to talk about the drama, I would have become a commentary channel. But which is the better film? Ants. I don't really care for A Bug's Life, to be honest, but that's a story for another day. I actually enjoy Ants quite a bit, and one reason for this is the world it builds, with it being much more realistic than A Bug's Life, which made for a much more engaging and entertaining movie, at least for me. I also like how dark it is, with it being much more violent, but in a way that helps the story. I actually did a video for some of these aspects for a school project and was going to release it to the channel, but you got the Caesar video instead, which in my opinion was the better of the two, but I might be a little biased. I also like all the characters. They all feel fleshed out and not just simple character traits personified. Yes, the animation is fairly rough in some spots, and overall it's certainly uglier than A Bug's Life, but that just helps the overall tone, making it grittier and more real. Nothing excellent, but certainly a solid start to a new animation studio, even if the creation of its origins are a bit dubious.
And I'm working with a new therapist, you know, terrific, absolutely terrific. He's been putting me in touch with my inner maggot, which is helping me a great deal. And, you know, I finally feel like I found my place. And you know what? It's right back where I started. But the difference is, this time, I chose it.
Number 23, B-Movie.
Something stinks in here!
I love the smell of flowers!
Yeah? How do you like the smell of flames?
Not as much!
From one insect movie to another, I'm gonna be completely honest with you, dear viewer, and I know that I will get a lot of flack about this, so get those roasts ready, but I kinda like the B-Movie unironically. Yeah, I know. Just allow me to at least explain myself. The cons of this film, the majority of the human character designs are pretty ugly and bad, and there is also so much going on in this movie with about 5 different subplots, with some of them coming and going and not even getting resolved. That being said, how can you not enjoy this film? It's the cinematic version of Nickelback. You may say you don't like it, but you still know all the memes from it. At least this has more personality than a Nickelback song. Wow, so stunning and brave of me to say such a controversial statement. No one has ever badmouthed Nickelback before. Well, I'll have you know that a Nickelback fan wrote that joke, so now you don't know what the hell to think, huh? Nah, I'm just kidding. We don't hire Nickelback fans here. But the B-Movie clearly embraces the pure insanity that it has to offer, and that's something I can get behind. Any movie that can just say screw it and tear off the straitjacket and go off the rails is a friend of mine. It's certainly more entertaining to watch than a completely mid movie. Aside from the craziness, I think I should give its due credit. The flight scenes are pretty well done. The creativity in the beehives is also very eye-appealing. There are also some pretty funny jokes in here, and I actually like the ending conflict, even if it does seem a bit rushed and overly dramatic. But I like that even though they win the case, there are consequences to their actions. They didn't just say, oh, we won the court case, happy end, roll credits. I think it shows that there was some effort put into the film, because they could have had a lot more romance subplot between Barry Benson and Vanessa. I'm gonna be completely honest, the B-Movie is where it is because I simply couldn't allow it to be any higher because I would not hear the end of it. Don't worry, it wasn't gonna be super high or anything, but I will say this is probably one of the few DreamWorks movies that I could watch anytime and actually quite enjoy it.
Beautiful day to fly.
Sure is.
Between you and me, I was dying to get out of that office.
It's alright.
Number 22, Abominable. Abominable is one of the few DreamWorks movies that I have never seen when making this list, and I was definitely very curious of it, since from the trailers it looked like it was going to have some really incredible scenes, but also some very dumb and goofy scenes. However, upon watching the film, it in fact turns out that's exactly what it is. Abominable is a mixture of heartfelt, beautiful artistic moments and extremely childish comedic scenes with everything else in between. Comments first, Ping was extremely annoying and very much like Thunk from The Cruise, but had way more screen time, which made him more annoying in comparison. The twist villain was also extremely predictable, but I feel like years of watching Scooby-Doo has trained me to figure out who the bad guy is immediately. It wasn't as fast as Evelyn from Incredibles 2, but it was still pretty quick. It's just another I want money from this super rare creature type villain. Basically Clayton if he sucked out any shred of little personality that he had. The comedy is a mixed bag, with some of it being pretty funny, with this line probably being my favorite.
You're the bad guys. Ah! Your gerbil is freaking me out.
A boy that knows his gerbils. I like him.
But also some just clearly targeted to little kids type humor. Aside from those things, there is quite a bit to praise for this movie. For starters, the animation is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, we should expect this from modern animated movies, but still, it's very impressive, especially the nature shots. I'm also a big fan of the music, with all of it complementing the animation and scenes wonderfully. He is a very nice character where we get to see her journey of grief and loss and how she's able to navigate it through the help of Everest and the journey they all go on. This is all done through a lot of quieter moments that are allowed to breathe and just take time for them to play out and not feel rushed. It's a nice little movie that has some really beautiful moments that are just comforting. And while a bit slower paced, I believe it's to the movie's benefit.
There is no one in the world who likes these pork buns more than me. Well, maybe one.
Who else like my buns? No laughing. I'm serious.
Number 21, The Bad Guys.
What the Thorax? Are you crazy?
What? I just wanted a longer car chase. It's the best part.
Well, I already have done a separate video for The Bad Guys when it first came out and gave it a fairly high praise, and for the most part I hold pretty similar opinions as then. Mr. Wolf and Mr. Snake are the best characters and have the best development. I like how they are having conflicts amongst their friendship and worried about being left behind.
You want to know why I hate birthdays, Wolf? Do you? When you grow up a snake, nobody shows up to your party. Birthdays are a constant reminder that out there, I'm just a scary, good-for-nothing monster.
Diane is also pretty solid, and everyone else is just kind of fine, although on a second watch, the other bad guys are more annoying than I remember them being. Comedy is mostly solid, but there are definitely heavy moments of cringe, and not the good kind. The action and animation is very fast-paced and stylized, which I always appreciate doing something outside the norm. The messaging and themes have been done better and before in other DreamWorks movies, of which will come later, but overall, it's a fun movie. Plus, any movie that teaches people to actually be accountable for their actions will always get kudos from me. And the whole furry community loved this movie. I shouldn't be surprised that much, but it makes me wonder about them from time to time.
Webbs, hit it.
Number 20, The Croods, A New Age.
What's wrong with the sleep pile?
Oh, come on, Eep! The sleep pile reeks! Reeks of love!
Well, at least I smell like me. I don't even know what you smell like.
Flowers and soft rain.
So I really like the first Croods to the point that when I saw trailers for this one, I was kind of upset because it looked like this was going to be a very childish cash grab. Yes, I had a don't you dare ruin my beloved IP with the f***ing Croods. Well, even though I like the first Croods especially more than the average person, I can still admit that this is the better movie and more enjoyable. It's extremely funny.
Go get it!
Gruggers. Grug.
And that flea-infested rat baby? You dumb baby.
Okay, I'm gonna kill her.
Douglas! Douglas!
Here, right here. All your needs will be met.
I'm hungry! In a minute! Take
I did not expect to laugh this hard at the Croods 2. Honestly, this is similar to Madagascar 2 versus Madagascar 3, where one has much more powerful emotional moments, but there are just enough cliches that it does cripple the movie enough where the second film is not necessarily as emotional, but it's not necessarily trying to be. It's a funny movie that doesn't take itself too seriously and just wants to tell some jokes. I feel like Eep is more fleshed out as a character, but who cares, it's funny. Plus this film paved the way for one of the best DreamWorks movies, but we'll get to that one later.
We call Bronana bread.
My father was afraid of the pack getting smaller.
But in the end, it got bigger. A whole lot bigger.
Dad was right after all. We were stronger together.
Number 19, Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Ah, Wallace and Gromit. How can you not like them? They're just charming and quaint and almost make me forget about my natural American hatred for Britain.
Let's get
Almost. In school, a go-to video for teachers to play at my school were Wallace and Gromit shorts, but I'd never seen this one either, or maybe I have, but it was so long ago that I don't remember it. It's all a weird fever dream in my memory. But I can happily say that Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, is as delightful and charming as you would come to expect. It's filled with some pretty funny moments. And Lord Victor Quatermain III is both a hilarious and legitimately threatening villain at times. I feel like there's not a whole lot I can say about this movie other than it's a fun little movie that I enjoyed. It's not trying to be this great character study or tell this vast and complex story. Wallace and Gromit, man, and it does it very well. What else is there to say? Number 18, The Road to El Dorado.
You know, family matters, you know, and it's just a bit family. Bada bing, bada boom, you know what I mean.
Oh, we expected you to be staying with us for the next 1,000 years.
Well, as we say in the spirit world, there's your plan and then there's the God's plan.
The Road to El Dorado was one of the earliest DreamWorks films and had a bunch of rewrites and production problems with it, originally being a much more adult movie, but some of that might have leaked through. Miguel and Tulio are some pretty fun characters, and you have a believable friendship with them. Sometimes it's almost too believable. But they have some pretty good comedic timing, and holy shit, Kenneth Branagh voices Miguel? My autistic grown-ass always knew him as the guy that narrated the Walking with Dinosaurs and Walking with Prehistoric Beasts documentary series, and totally forget that he's actually an acclaimed actor and director. But you would too if all you did was hyperfixate on dinosaurs and prehistoric mammals. The story is about two friends who make the city of El Dorado think they are gods and trying to use that to get a bunch of gold in order to escape. The two chiefs are very fun, and it's very entertaining to see them constantly trying to one-up each other, with us getting a classic over-the-top Disney villain from Zekel Khan, and a wise leader giving some wisdom in the form of the chief. The music is also very good, with myself enjoying a lot of the music from this movie, with Elton John doing a great job, and I might be slightly biased since I'm a big fan of this guy, even going to a Halloween party as him and doing some nice little karaoke of I'm Still Standing. I and one other person who has had some involvement with the channel do have footage of that, but no force on heaven or earth will ever make that go public. In particular, Tough to Be a God and Friends Never Say Goodbye have been very popular choices on my playlist. The animation is also very beautiful, with the city of El Dorado truly living up to the visual hype that you would expect from the City of Gold. The jokes are all pretty funny with some great moments. That said, the comedy is a bit mixed with something I've heard specifically from the nostalgia critic, but to paraphrase what he said, the facial expressions and physical exaggeration seem very tame at times when it could be more cartoony. And I can definitely see that. They always seem like they are moving how a real person would move, but why would you make an animated movie if you're not going to have animated characters and act zany? They do act animated, but there's just enough times where it could be a little more exaggerated to make it even funnier, but it's still a very funny movie. But The Road to El Dorado is a very fun movie that has a lot of heart. That's pretty much everything to say.
Hey Cameron, are you in there?